Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, and I would say that this brewery though are mainly known for their New England hazy IPAs, and we've had lots of nice examples of that particular style over the years, but we've also had some other styles as well that have turned out to be really quite interesting. So it's always nice to try new beers from this brewery, and the one that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases, and this one seems to be really highly regarded. So looking forward to this one as always. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, as I said, we are going to cross the Øresund. We're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark, Herlev in the northwest to be specific, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Gamma Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Dipole. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. But yeah, if memory serves me correctly, I got this one at Kiosk in Copenhagen, which is one of the beer shops that I often visit when I go over there, and I would recommend that you go and check them out. They've always got a really good selection of Danish and international stuff. Yeah, one of my favourite places to go in Copenhagen, in fact, and you always get some nice Gamma things there. But yeah, the Dipole 8% New England hazy Imperial Double IPA, whatever you want to call it. I picked this one out of the few different ones that they had just because of the name. You know, dipole moments and things like that are very important in chemistry, and I do like the fact that these guys use a lot of different scientific names and stuff like that. But yeah, looking forward to this. Let's get cracking and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Gamma Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but quite regularly because I live in the south of Sweden, very close to Denmark, and I go over there quite often. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Gamma Brewing Company once again. So Gamma Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Herlev in northwest Copenhagen, and the company was founded back in 2015 by 4 friends who were bartenders in the various beer bars around the city. But they talked quite often about how it would be really cool to have their own brewery, and that's what they ended up doing. So they took in another co-owner in the early days, and so the team at the brewery is Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Coy and Nick, and they all had a little bit of homebrewing experience, and 2 of them had actually worked in Ulsnegern in Copenhagen, who went on to purchase the former Stronzo brewery in Gørløse, again in the northwest of Copenhagen, and this was what later became Ølkollektivet, and that was where these guys brewed for a long time. But apparently they were invited to join Ølkollektivet, and they got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery without any experience of running a business. But it went quite well for them, of course. They've expanded twice, and they were producing around 500 hectolitres at maximum where they were involved at Ølkollektivet. But one of the co-owners is also a co-owner of the May Ulsnedkeren bar, which is in Aarhus. And Ølkollektivet has at points been home to Ulsnegern, Gamma Brewing and Dry and Bitter. And Ulsnegern also brewed the Bad Seed beers under contract for a while before they got their own brewery, and Ghost Brewing and Rooster have also brewed at this facility before but have since moved on. But in July of 2020, they announced that they would move to a new brewery in Herlev, and they worked on building this up over the next few months. But in February of 2021, they released their last beers from the Gørløse brewery and moved into their new site in Herlev. And the new beers from this site in Herlev were first released in March of this year, 2021. But as of September 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 130 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. But yeah, as I say, really good brewery. If you're interested in New England hazy IPAs, then Gamma are definitely one of the Danish breweries that you really want to check out. These guys really know what they're doing. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about Gamma Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your history section of this video. We can take a breath. So like I mentioned to you at the start of this video, this one comes in at 8% ABV. It's a New England hazy imperial double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, 440ml can. And yeah, like I said, I picked this one up at Kiosk in Copenhagen. Now, the odd thing about this that I noticed was that when I went on to the Untappd page, which usually has all the hops and all the malts and things listed, it only told you the hops this time. So this one is hopped with Citra and Nectaron. So yeah, Nectaron is a new variety from New Zealand. I took a few notes on this because I'm curious to see what it's actually going to give us. I think whenever you encounter a new hop, it's always good to read about what you're supposed to get and then judge what you actually get from it. This is the way that you kind of learn about these things. So Nectaron, yeah, I'm pronouncing this correctly. So yeah, Nectaron is a New Zealand hop, as I mentioned. It was previously known as Hort 4337. The name is taken from the phrase Nectar of the Gods and the name Ron Beeston. And Ross is the principal scientist at Plant and Food Research New Zealand. Apparently he spent his lifetime researching different hops and breeding new hops and things like this. But it gives apparently 10 to 12% alpha acid, and it's a sister of Vimea, and it's supposed to give you a big hit of passion fruit, peach, grapefruit and pineapple. So a big tropical fruit, but they do reckon that this hop is going to be a big hitter from New Zealand. I'm not sure if it will ever be able to displace Nelson Sauvin, but yeah, I think to have more New Zealand hops is never a bad thing. They've got some really great hops down there, and of course the main reason that there's so many is that there are no natural competitors for hops down there, so they've got a lot of prime land they can use to grow lots of different things. I would like to go down to New Zealand again and visit Nelson, because I never got the chance to go to the South Island, of course. But yeah, that's all we can really say about Nectaron, or Nectaron I should say. Thinking Transformers, Megatron. But yeah, Nectaron, this one. This should be really interesting. But yeah, 440ml can, as we said, 8%er. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what we're going to have in store for this one. So if memory serves me correctly, this beer cost me about, I want to say 60 Danish kroner. So that is roughly, that translates to maybe about 80 Swedish kroner. So about €8 for the can. That will be, what, about £7 sterling, something like that, and I guess somewhere in the region of $9 or whatever. So for a New England double IPA at Danish prices, that isn't too bad. Of course, remember, Denmark, unless you're living and working there, it is a little bit of an expensive country, very expensive, very strong currency I should say, and very high wage levels for the locals, of course. So, you know, labour costs and things are high, so you will pay a little bit more if you want to drink Danish beer, but I like it, so it's a treat. Every time I go to Copenhagen I spend a little bit too much money, but you only live once in that sense, and I invest a lot, so why not? But anyway, as you can see, this beer has poured. It looks very nice actually. If we shine the light through this beer, it's a lovely, again, very kind of rich yellow colour. I think you guys actually, I know I'm still trying to figure out the lighting in this room, but I think you guys are actually seeing the colour of this one quite nicely. It's a very rich kind of light amber, dark yellow kind of colour, this one. As you can see, when we poured the beer, it poured with about a half finger of a frothy. I would say perfect white head on this one. I would say this is perfect white, but you can see it's got a nice kind of thick ring around the edge of the glass. It's faded away to just be a very thin, or it's fading I should say, it's not quite done. It's fading away to just be a very kind of thin foamy layer, but as I say, a nice big kind of thick ring around the edge of the glass in this one. But colour wise, as we say, a kind of light amber, very rich dark yellow colour for this one. So kind of like a mixed tropical fruit juice. I always like comparing New England IPAs to mixed tropical fruit juices, because that's really just what the these beers remind me of in that sense. But yeah, Looks very, very good. So remember, the colour of these beers depend on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role there. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. And when it's an 8%er, you know, they're going to put a little bit of a kind of brown sugary orientated malt in this. So I'm not surprised at the slightly darker yellow colour. Barrel aging and adjuncts of course can play a role, but we don't normally need to care about these when we're talking New England IPA as a style. But yeah, the level of haze in this one is pretty good. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest of 8%ers that I've come across, but remember, the level of haze depends on the wheat and the oak content as well as the yeast, and that varies from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe. But overall, for a New England double IPA, it certainly looks the part. So I think we can take a look at the aroma of this one then and see how we go. So let's do this. Ooh, that smells really nice, but we expect that from Gamma, to be honest. So yeah, first impression of this beer, lovely soft white bready malty backbone. Green component doesn't strike me as being too pungent, but you've got a lot of that lovely bright but still quite soft, juicy, fruity character, and it's very tropical, this one. It is a really soft kind of tropical juicy note that you're getting out of this, and it certainly works. It's a lovely, lovely smelling beer, this. So once again, thumbs up to Gamma Brewing. But let's try and break that down a little bit more. That's simply a first impression. So yeah, backbone of the beer, we've got, there's a little bit of a kind of bread crusty note in this one, absolutely, you can smell that in there, but a soft, kind of almost slightly crisp white bread in there. You certainly get that out of the beer, but you can smell a little bit of a kind of thicker, more dense white bread on top of that, and I'm guessing that's the wheat. I think the wheat really is kind of thickening out the aroma of this beer a bit, and you certainly get a bit of bitiness from the wheat at the very back of the nose as well. The oats for me aren't too prominent in the beginning, but once your nose adjusts to it a wee bit, you can smell a little bit more of the kind of oaty smoothness in the beginning. But I would actually say that this beer leans a bit more to the kind of bready and wheaty side of things, come to think of it. I actually do get quite a little bit of yeasty character out of this one, so it's got a wee bit of that kind of crackery, slightly farmhousey kind of vibe coming out of it as well. And as I've said in many videos now, I think there's 6 kind of factors you need to consider for a New England IPA. You can have them, they can either be farmhousey and yeasty, they can be kind of rye-leaning and grainy. We don't find too many of those in Europe right enough, but wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or they can be a little bit more kind of brown sugary leaning, but quite often they will display multiple characteristics. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a farmhousey, yeasty kind of thing out of this one, and I've noticed this in the last few Gamma beers that I've had, although it's been quite a wee while since I've had one of these, mainly because of COVID and all of this stuff and not being able to go to Copenhagen. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of this is very, very nice actually, as we say. So a bit of that kind of crackery, yeasty sort of thing, but backbone is bread crust. I think the cracker kind of goes into that as well, in fairness. But soft white bread, a thicker wheaty layer, a bit of wheaty bitiness. You can get a little bit of the oaty notes, and I think there is, you know, I do get a wee bit of brown sugar out of this one, like a McVitie's digestive biscuit, but also some of that kind of Werther's Original type thing as well. But when it's an 8%er, you know, you would expect a little bit of a kind of brown sugary orientated malt to come out of this one. So absolutely, I get a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary orientated malt out of this one. So yeah, it works. It goes together really quite well in my opinion. So yeah, malty side of this one and yeasty side works together really well. On the hoppy side of things, like I said, I don't find the green component too pungent in this. There is a wee teeny bit of earthiness in there, a big floral aromaticity, and that's one of the things with this. You know, you've got Nectaron is supposed to give you between 10 and 12% acidity, alpha acidity I should say, and Citra is supposed to give you, gives you about 14 normally, but this one really doesn't have such a big green component. But you have to remember that New England IPAs rely on late edition hopping rather than early edition hopping, and I think that most of the green component will come from early edition hopping, and this gives you the bitterness and so on. But New England IPAs are more late edition hopping and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs have a bit more early edition hopping, so bear that in mind. But the aroma out of this one, I think, is on the green side of things. There's a wee bit of earthiness. There is a little bit of a kind of floral aromatic brightness to it, and then you get a nice wet kind of leafy, grassy character as well. So yeah, I like how this one goes about its business for sure. So yeah, I think it's the green component of this one works well, so it gets a thumbs up from me, but it's quite subtle, I would say, but it suits the vibe of the beer. But let's focus on the fruity side of things, because of course when it's a new hop, this is where you kind of should focus your energy. So on the fruity side of things, for me, you do get a bit of the pungent passion fruit, and that's going to be both Citra and Nectaron. But it's also, I do get a wee bit of that peachy sharpness out of it, but not a lot. I get a big juicy mango in there. Absolutely, I do get a bit of big juicy mango. You know, yeah, I think I get quite a bit of peach out of it. Absolutely, you do get a bit of that, because that gives the beer just a little bit more sharpness than you'd get from the pungent passion fruit or the soft mango. So you can smell that. There's a bit of peach in there. It's almost like the Nectaron is giving you a wee bit more depth to the tropical character of the Citra, actually. So, you know, I would have wondered, to be honest, maybe it would have been better to pair Nectaron with like Mosaic or something, which is quite obviously different. Whereas, you know, Citra has the mango, it's got the passion fruit. These are things that you're supposed to get from this hop. So that would be one maybe criticism I would make if you're introducing a new hop. They've maybe used it before right enough and I've just not seen it. But yeah, for me, wanting to try this hop for the first time, that might be a little problematic. But you do get a wee bit of a juicy, I can see what they're saying with pineapple with this one. I think this beer does have a bit of that softer pineapple-y note to it. But yeah, it doesn't, you know, it just comes across as quite soft and tropical and fruity in a lot of ways. So yeah, pungent passion fruit, juicy mangoes, sharper peach, pineapple, yeah, so I'm getting the peach and the pineapple from the Nectaron, which is kind of cool. But then there's also a wee bit of a kind of citrusy, zesty kind of thing coming out of this, a little bit of a slightly lemon note. I'd say it's, yeah, a bit lemony rather than limey, to be honest, and that's one of the traits you'll always find from Citra. But yeah, lovely aroma to it, this beer. Surprised that the green component isn't a little bit more pungent, but when it's a New England IPA, then it's not overly surprising, to be honest with you. I think I just poured a big bit of sediment into the glass there, but the beer is pretty fresh actually, so we don't need to worry too much about that. But yeah, anyway, we've got all of it in the glass now. We've had a good sniff at it. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but we're going to try this one now. So yeah, this is the Dipole, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Gamma Brewing in Herlev over in Copenhagen. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, and cheers. Oh, that's very nice, and it's also quite fresh as well. So surprised that there's a wee bit of sediment in this one, I have to say, when it is so fresh, because I know this beer was only released, I think they only got it in a few days before I picked it up in Kiosk actually. So yeah, that is a bit unusual, but yeah, there's a fair wee bit of sediment in the bottom of the glass there. I don't know how well you can see that, but yeah, we'll need to be careful of that, I guess. But this is another solid New England IPA from these guys, so big thumbs up to them. But I wouldn't expect any less from Gamma at this stage, to be honest. So, yeah, first impressions of this one is, for an 8% double, it's actually ridiculously easy to drink. It's very, very smooth, and it's quite balanced between the oats, the wheat, and the more kind of barley malty side of things. And you get a wee bit of yeastiness out of it as well, so it's quite balanced in its approach to things. Again, nothing wrong with that. And yeah, the green component's got a wee bit more zip to it than the Aroma would have you believe. But yeah, it certainly has some very nice kind of tropical notes to it as well. So thumbs up in that regard for me. So on the fruity side, or on the malty side of things, then we'll go through the beer as we always do. Backbone of this one, middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of grainy bread crusty note just going right across the the middle of your palate there, and that's nice grainy bread crusty note to this one, so that works. On top of that, you certainly get a very nice kind of soft white bready character there. That's the barley malt that's going to give you that. So yeah, soft kind of fresh white bready character in there, and that's these two notes are blanket in the middle and back third of your palate. There's a wee bit of a kind of grainy bread crusty sort of thing with this one. So yeah. So the more you drink of this beer as well, the more juicy it gets. But anyway, let's focus on that middle third of your palate for the moment. So as I say, bread crust, soft white bread. On top of that, you can feel a slightly thicker wheaty layer. You can really feel the wheat kind of thickening the beer out in this one. For me, the oats, they've got a wee bit of, they show up a little bit, but I don't find the oats overly prominent in this one. So for me, if you're going down the middle line of your palate, you can feel the nice kind of smooth oaty character there, and you can feel the oat has a little bit of depth on that middle kind of line of your tongue, if you like. So I really like that, and you can feel it just sort of spreading out towards the edge of the palate there. So I do like that about this. It's got a bit of dryness and a slight sweetness to it, the oaty character in this beer. So yeah, the way that this goes together is pretty solid actually, so thumbs up to them on the malt base in this. On top of that oaty layer though, it's almost like, you know, you can feel there's a little circle in the very middle of your palate there, and this is where the kind of boozy parts of the beer come out. So you certainly you can get a nice wee bit of that Werther's Original sort of base to the brown sugars there. This is just a circle right in the dead centre of your palate, but if you go into the very dead centre of your tongue, you get a nice kind of oily, caramelly, note coming out of this one. And at 8% ABV, you know, you do expect a wee bit of that brown sugariness in there to cover up some of the boozy aspects of the beer. But I mean, what I'll say about this one is that it's very well crafted, as you always get from Gamma. It's nothing surprising though, and you can't really ask for much more these days. There's so many hazy New England IPAs out there that all you can ask for them is to be well crafted. I would love to see these guys have a go at a double West Coast IPA, actually, an old school big bitter West Coast IPA. I think that would be really interesting. I can't remember if I've ever had a West Coast IPA from Gamma, apart from maybe back in the very early days of the brewery. So yeah, it would be interesting to see them do a new big old school bitter West Coast IPA. So yeah, hopefully something we can see from them soon. But yeah, the malty side of this one again is very good, and it's nice to try a New England double from these guys after quite a bit of time. But yeah, back third of the palate then. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate again. A little bit of a bready build up in there, a wee bit of bread crust. Backbone is bread crusty. You can feel a little bit of a crackery yeasty note underneath there as well. Then you get a bit more of a grainy bready character, and on top of that you get the wheaty notes, and the wheat is of course a little bit bitey, as you always find on the back third of your palate. Above all of that, of course, so you've got that more airy, yeasty sort of soft white bready character in there, but I find it quite dense. I actually find the yeastiness on this beer to be quite dense, to be honest with you. So that's interesting. But as I always say, back of the palate feels, you know, the height of the flavour feels quite tall. It condenses down. Then as you go into the middle third of your palate, it just feels a wee bit more kind of squashed together and condensed. But this is something that you often find in these kind of beers, but it works. So on the I think that covers everything we really need to say about the malty and yeasty part of the beer. Green component then. Back corners of the palate, a wee bit of earthiness. As you push further forward, a wee bit herbal, and as you move towards the kind of front corners of the palate, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic. And I really like how that goes together. A nice big deep floral aromaticity. It does, the floral aromaticity, I think the bitterness, it actually comes across as slightly dank, I think, the further you go into the aftertaste, but it takes a while for that to come out, and I'm surprised at that, because it's only really when I've kind of focused on the front corners of the palate that it's really been noticeable actually. So yeah. So yeah, there is a wee bit of dankness to this. I do wonder, could there be a little bit of Columbus used as the bittering hop in this? There's just something about the slight spiciness that this beer has. I think there could well be a little bit of Columbus in this one, the bittering hop. I don't know what Nectaron's bittering qualities are like right enough. But yeah, as I said earlier, New England IPAs, most of the hop additions go on in the last half hour of the boil and then in the dry hopping stage. But they will, to get bitterness out of these beers, I think they will add some hops early on to give you your 30 IBUs and things like this. But this one does feel as if it's got a wee Columbus element to it, a bit of, a little bit of earthiness, as we say, and then the kind of quite deep and almost slightly dank and spicy floral aromaticity. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassier. And I do like how this one, I do like how it goes together. So yeah, the way that works is really quite nice. So yeah, grassiness round the front curve of the palate, wee bit of zestiness to it, but again, I think the kind of floral aromatic notes really are the most pungent thing in the green component of this beer. But let's focus on the fruity part of the beer then. So front third of your palate, border region between front third and middle third, bit of bready build up, bit of graininess again, and then the base of that front third of your palate is a bit more kind of white bready and dense in a way. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. So yeah, a nice bit of a kind of white bready and dense type quality to this one. You can feel that in there. But on top of that, of course, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. Yeah, you can feel the depth in this one, and it does actually feel quite different from just Citra, of course. Citra is one of the most complex hops, I think, on its own. That's why it's so often used just as a, for single hop beers. But you can feel that this one has a bit more depth to it than just Citra, which is interesting. But yeah, back of that front third of your palate, passion fruit, and quite a pungent passion fruit at that. As you move further forward, you get a wee bit of that kind of more sharper and zippy peach out of it, but then you can feel the big juicy mango-y notes in there, and that's kind of interesting. And the mango goes all the way towards the kind of front half of that middle third of your palate. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you get a wee bit of a dried apricot-y note at the back, and then you get a wee bit more of a kind of lemony, zesty note just towards the kind of front tip of your palate. But sitting on top of that, you get a kind of pineapple-y character out of this one. So I think the peach, as we say, the peach and the peach and the soft pineapple, I think, are most likely to come from the Nectaron. And it's just interesting that, as I say, I would have liked to try. It's a bit difficult to kind of distinguish exactly what passion fruity notes and what mango-y notes are coming from the Nectaron because of the Citra. I would have preferred to try Nectaron on its own in a single hop IPA, and it seems, from what they're saying, it seems like it has the complexity to do that. So a single hop Nectaron IPA could be really interesting, but either that or try it with a hop that's quite different, like Amarillo or Mosaic or something like that. But they've combined it in this one they've combined it together with a hop that is kind of similar in ways apart from the kind of lemon limey notes. So it's a bit difficult to really get a proper impression, I think, in this one of what Nectaron is going to be. But I certainly get a wee bit of the peach. I get the pineapple as well, and it's difficult to distinguish exactly how the mangoes and the things are in that. But yeah, I mean, I do get a wee bit of a lemony zest just behind the front tip of the palate in this one, and that blends in with the sort of grassy aspects of the beer. But certainly an interesting one. Certainly an interesting one. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the fruity side of the beer, but I'm curious to try a few more Nectaron beers, that's for sure. But yeah, let's round off this review with the mouthfeel then. Let's look at that. But this is nice. So overall, I would say that this beer is at the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. There is a degree of oiliness to this beer, but I actually find it to be a very smooth New England double IPA. So yeah, a good blend between the oily side and the smoother side of things. In terms of hoppy bitterness, what can we say about this one? I find this one a wee bit more bitter, and as I say, I suspect there could be a wee bit of Columbus in this or something, because it does have a wee bit of a spicy floral note in the front corners of the palate, and that's not immediately obvious in the aroma of the beer, but I think this one could be 40, maybe 50 IBUs. It does feel a little bit more bitter, particularly further into the aftertaste. The malt base, as we said, is a bit grainy underneath, smooth and thick and bready, and a wee bit bitey on top of that, wee touch creamy, and then there's a wee bit of a brown sugary element to it as well, but soft, tropical, soft tropical fruits out of it, and it's got a wee bit of an oily, kind of zesty thing as well. So yeah, I do like how this beer goes together. But yeah, definitely very tropical leaning, and it gets juicier and I think more oily the more that you drink of it. But yeah, big thumbs up to Gamma Brewing Company again for this one. Another solid beer, and that's not a surprise at this stage. So yeah, let's leave it there. This one is the Dipole New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Gamma Brewing Company in Herlev in Copenhagen. So yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Gamma Brewing. Nice to return to these guys again after what feels like a little while, but I enjoyed this one. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys again soon. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.